here. So there are a couple more attackers than in the previous game. Lucas has a heavy line of Poker Gear and actually plays 3 copies of Malolana, so it's as if both of them are tech for each other even more than the previous game.
This is going to be a very interesting one to watch. Let's head on over to the game and see if we can see Eternatus pulling off some of these plays and getting kind of lucky, but maybe in 2 games rather than 3. Okay, I love the use of the Lucario coin for the Lucario player. That is a lovely touch.
Great thematic coin there for you. Matias is going to be the player that we are following. They kick off with a Galarian Zigzagoon. They have themselves, well, not the best of hands, really. Great Ball trying to bail them here a little bit. Interestingly, the game isn't conventional when you play this matchup. You're not going for, let me get my turn 1 Eternatus energy drop. It's more like, let me get some Spiritombs down and start building Spite.
Unless your opponent passes with a lone Zacian.
True. That is an option. But we do see the Lily's Pokédoll come down, an energy drop for Lucas, and just the Intrepid Sword for an additional 3 cards here. We're going to see the Crushing Hammer straight away. Does get that Tails, and we do see a Great Ball. It is going to be an Eternatus V. I still feel like they are worth putting into play, especially because it allows you to draw an additional card here. You could even use Power Accelerator to deal with a Lily's Pokédoll this turn and just remove that as an option for Lucas. You could use the boss's orders proactively if you really wanted to. Yeah, I don't mind this at all. You're not doing much else in your opening, and this means, you're putting pressure on that Intrepid Sword. You're making Lucas have more Pokemon in his hand, because otherwise then there is the possibility of dealing with the Zacian on turn 2.
It is. It's kind of upsetting you don't see an energy draw there. Of course, best thing about Power Accelerator most of the time is that you do get that extra energy attachment as well as doing the 30 damage, but unfortunately did not draw into an energy. Already used Crobat this turn, so it's the sad Power Accelerator where you don't get to attach an energy, which is not terribly ideal.
Let's see where Lucas is at. Did the Intrepid Sword help him get towards any ball search? It certainly did. He even has the Lucario Melmetal hitting that discard pile. No Zamazenta prize. Lucas does play 2 copies of his own. And yeah, now it's Project Build Up Zamazenta, more or less. He can quick ball out another one. The strategy is pretty much nailed on at this point. You can see both players' deck list. You know that Matias only has these 1 prize Pokemon that sort of do pokes in and out. So he's immediately established those Zamazentas. And now we see Pokegear 3.0, not really a card that you associate with the Lucario Melmetal archetype, but it's a really cool one in here. He plays a high count of Marnie, he also plays a high count of Boss's Orders and Malolana, so it's almost like that tag call option, but a little bit more versatile in this list.
No, I like it. Gets your supporters more easily. It's always nice. We do see a slot. Oh, Boss's Orders here straight away onto that Hooper, just to try and trap something awkward in the active. It is always fun to see these matchups close together. We got the same matchup we saw in the previous round, and we are actually in the same round, winners round 6. But what I find really interesting here is, in the previous game, we saw the Luke Metal player going for Lucario and Melmetal. Here, we see what you were calling for in the previous game, which is just, let's get Zamazenta, let's attach energy, that's the only real thing that matters.
Yeah, the 30 reduction can come in important at times. As we see the second Boss's Orders actually get discarded early for Matias here, just so they can go ahead and grab Crobat to draw some more cards. But yeah, I think both avenues are fine, and it's not like Lucas doesn't have the license to put down Lucario Melmetal later on. That tanking can become important, especially when Crobats are hitting you over and over again. But this list, especially for Lucas, where you play 3 copies of Malolana and a ton of Pokegear to dig them out, even against Marnie, you have that license to just go, well, Zamazenta's ready to go. Let's start swinging.
Absolutely. And of course, all these little Pokemon that are, pretty useful against these, actually, they're all in range of Zamazenta. So we do see a Marnie being played here. We have hit another Crushing Hammer, so potentially slowing down that Zamazenta, or even the Zacian. But at some point, the Zacian might actually be getting KO'd right here.
Mm-hmm. Holds on to the Crushing Hammer, which is an interesting choice. You kind of want Lucas to commit more into one of them, so then you can start stripping energy away from one, because if you leave them both blank, then he can do that thing where he just leaves one active and starts attaching to the bench. So you want to hold the Crushing Hammer for now, leave Lucas to commit into one a little bit more as he's double goggling up. He does get that second energy drop and is going to research away one of those metal energies. Pretty solid turn for him and is happy to pass now.
Absolutely, that went pretty well. I mean, what more does he really need? I mean, a bit more energy, but that will come next turn. We did see a Tails on the Crushing Hammer, and now it is turning into a bit of a Spiritomb party. Of course, like we saw in the previous game, even when the Spiritomb's here, it's great for taking something like a Dedenne GX or something like an Oricorio GX this week. It is really not that efficient at dealing with something like a Zamazenta, especially when you build in stuff like Metal Goggles to reduce damage.
We are seeing the communication now. Probably is going to be that second Spiritomb coming in. Just build Spite on all the chaps. Didn't find any of his switch outs. They already had discarded 2. And I think 2 of the others were Marnied all the way to the bottom. So the Zamazenta's simply going to wall out Eternatus here. We see an energy drop onto Crobat. And yeah, just passing it over to Lucas.
Absolutely. Lucas does get that third energy, which is absolutely huge. And now it's just going to be about taking prizes. Maybe trying to get a boss's orders, taking out those Spiritomb nice and early. Speaking of which, a boss's orders to take out that Spiritomb nice and early.
Yeah, Lucas plays 4 copies of Boss and 4 copies of Pokegear. So he can just point at all these Pokemon all the time and say, I don't want to deal with you. Let's deal with you first. And we are actually going to see the Crobat ready to rumble here. It can start chipping away, and we are going to see another Marnie come down. I believe that was Matias' last boss's orders getting rooted to the bottom of his deck now, so not accessible for a little bit. But we are going to see the Crushing Hammer.
Yeah. Where's he going to go? He is a heads there, so it does get rid of one of those energy. It's not really enough. It just means Lucas is an energy attachment away next turn. But at least it's something. And we see the Venomous Fang hitting for 40, getting that poison damage on there. With the 3 copies of Mallow and Lana, it is going to take so much for Crobat to actually get a KO on the Zamazenta here. We do see the Coating Metal Energy come down, and we actually see a Metal Saucer onto the bent Zamazenta as well. Oh, another Metal Saucer coming down. I really thought that was going to be a third Metal Saucer. I was getting all excited.
Yeah, incredible stuff though. Double Zamazenta ready to go. Now he can just Mallow Lana dance between them, more or less. They're both just going to be churning through every turn, just swinging 130. It's not much, but it gets the job done. It's certainly more than what Matias is able to pull out.
Absolutely. You know, Matias has gone and taken 2 prizes, and that looks like it's going to be it for the game. That looks like about their lot at this stage, because this is the dream, right? When you're playing against Eternatus with these Zamazenta decks, the dream is 2 Zamazenta, each of which with 3 energy on, and a deck full of Mallow and Lana to start healing. I think there's definitely a Metal Goggles on the active. I'm fairly sure there's one on the bench there as well. Sure, it would be nice to get that 30 reduction from Full Metal Wall, but it really doesn't matter very much at this stage. And I think we might see a Mallow and Lana soon.
Yeah, you'd have to assume so. We don't see Lucas's hand, but just the number of outs he has, the math is perfect for this turn to be the heal. Here's a Pokegear fishing for it by the looks of things, and there is one of his 3 copies. It's heartbreaking for Matias. All you have to do is really hope that your Marnie can stick, but there it is. Even a 3rd energy for the benched Zamazenta, so that can just come in swinging. Deals with the first Crobat. Now just 3 prizes away for Lucas. Matias needs more energy attachments. They can fire off a boss's order. A research this turn. Maybe even Crushing Hammer plus Derail play into the active, now that there's a Coating Metal Energy established. That could be another way that you can buy time.
I think that's going to have to be it. We do see a Tails on Crushing Hammer, though, so there goes that dream. And, I mean, maybe you draw another one off the Professor's research, but it's one of these matchups where if you're Matias, you need everything to go well. You need things to be going in your favour. You need to be hitting what you need. Everything needs to be going well. And as it stands at the moment, it's not going as well as they would like, and that is on top of the terrible matchup to begin with.
We are seeing Matias mull over his options, could go for that Derail play. Would have been much better alongside a Crushing Hammer. I feel like you still have to go Crobat first, so you get the Poison Ticks going on. I feel that's slightly stronger, but possibly with a 3-card hand. And Lucas actually discarded a switch with their Mallow Lana, so maybe you're hoping that this gets you a turn.
That would be nice. You don't get any damage, but you get rid of an energy. Maybe you buy a turn. Get some... Oh, it's a Professor's research, so you've got to think there's at least an energy coming off the back of this.
It would be a surprise, yeah. I mean, they play 14 energy, so...
Well, there's a switch. And a Metal Saucer.
Yeah, those 2. More dolls. Yeah, Lucas is in just prime position here. He can take 1 more knockout, so 2 knockouts on small Pokemon or 1 knockout on a Crobat, and he's there. Pretty simple stuff. A couple turns away, more or less.
And I think we are at that stage where Matthias has got to be looking at the board and just being like, well, now what? Ah, there we go. And we are saying, you know, I'm going first next game. That always precedes a concession. So it seems like Matthias is going to concede game 1 and go, you know what? I've taken this game as far as I'm going to. Unfortunately, it ain't going to happen. Let's go to game 2, see if I can get a little bit luckier.
Yeah, the real hope, again, is just that there's so few basic Pokemon that the Lucario Melmetal deck plays that maybe they just lead out with a Zacian, maybe they just attach Intrepid Sword, and maybe that's your window to just take a huge KO. Outside of that, as long as there's the Pokegears that are hitting supporters, you're able to research, able to Mani, able to find those quick balls, you can establish those Pokemon, and they're just so awkward to deal with. That Zamazenta doesn't go anywhere, just sticks in play. Malolana's infinitely, apparently, and yeah, just so difficult to deal with.
I don't think we've actually seen one be KO'd in either of these matchups so
Doesn't
far.
happen.
They don't go down, they just stay there. So, I mean, going first for Eternatus can be absolutely huge because maybe you attach turn 1, your opponent passes with a Zacian, and then you attach new VMAX and you go. So let's head on over to game 2 and see if that is an option. It did almost happen in the previous match, so you never know, Joe.
Yeah, it's on the table. Just by the nature of the Lucario Melmetal deck, you try and stifle prize cards in any way possible, which means there aren't these helpful Pokemon that enter all sorts of other deck lists. So that's really the window that you can see for Eternatus, because the matchup is just so skewed against you when you don't play the poison package that you see in some other lists, where it's the Toxicroak and a bunch of Galarian Slowbros to put damage into play. The dreams happened. There's a lone Zacian up front. There's an Eternatus with an energy drop. This is the best you can do, really, in your opening stages. I think you play the switch here as well. You play everything to get the Crobat draw, to give yourself the best odds to actually take that turn 2 attack.
Yeah, and that Evil Tail's got free retreat, so it's not like you're stranding something in the active you wouldn't, you're going to regret later. So you draw the forward Crobat, and, there's a Great Ball and another switch. And then, there's no draw there at the moment, though. So you're kind of hoping that Great Ball's a Crobat, and that your opponent drops an energy so you can play Crushing Hammer. That's Pokédoll.
The Pokédoll comes down, a couple of them. That is rough. That's at least 2 turns that Matthias has to wait. At least 2 Intrepid Swords, more or less. So that's a lot of cards to be dodging, basically every Ball Search card. We do see an early Malolana switching here. Basically just trying to secure the draw from the Zacian.
Yeah, I like this. And then you're basically saying, okay, then get your turn 1 attack, see if I care. And there is a boss's orders in hand, but there isn't really that much hand thinning that can really be done. We don't see a Crobat or an Eternatus VMAX off the Great Ball. We just see a Hooper. And actually, Matthias' hand here is not particularly good. We got boss's orders to potentially stall a little bit. We've got energy. We're probably going to see a switch into an Eternatus.
Yeah, Derail's fine here. You can't deal with the Zacian, so deal with some dolls, get them out of the way. You eventually have to at some point, unless you're able to just continually chain those boss's orders. So let's deal with them. And Lucas is going to make his own stalling boss's orders play here, as we see another energy drop onto Zacian. Still no Pokemon, which is the good news. And we can see just another switch Derail play. We actually see a Professor's Research off the top, which is a huge deal here.
Yeah, and there's a switch in hand as well. That's pretty good. There's an energy, there's a switch. So we've got a lot going on here in terms of actually being able to take out the Dole. I mean, maybe Lucas still doesn't have a Pokemon?
Yeah, it's only 4 draws, right? It's the 3 from Intrepid and the top deck. You'd have to be missing out on all your Ball Search cards, all the physical Pokemon, as well as your Pokegears, Researchers, and Marnies, which he plays 4 of all of them. But it's possible.
Okay. It's asking quite a lot, admittedly, but it's possible. We cannot see Lucas's hand from our vantage point here. So it is unlikely, but possible, Lucas is going to pass with a Zacian, or potentially take a KO. So there is still a possibility.
Yeah, and you're dealing with this second Lily's Pokédoll. Make Lucas have it is really all you do. You kind of shrug your shoulders and say, well, sometimes they don't. It's only 4 cards,
Oh, could it happen? Could it actually happen? There's nothing come down yet.
Yeah, taking it slow. Maybe it's the disbelief. Maybe it's actually happened.
Oh,
Research
no.
it all away.
Oh, so that's where the pause comes in. That is a lot of stuff going away. Oh, there were extra Zacian in hand.
Yeah, and he could have afforded to put one into play. It just means he can't use Lucario Marmetal later on. No. Not like this. Oh, Lucas took the risk. Didn't put down a backup Zacian. Just takes a KO. Which means Matthias can level it up here with enough Pokemon coming into play.
With a full bench, this is it. Full bench is 270. Even when you minus a 30, that's 240. That is enough. So, oh, there were 2 Zacian in hand.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that risk. It is a professor's research. You still have a ton of... Oh, no! Well, there's still the professor's research, so... We can see the energy drop onto Spiritomb here. You can build Spites. You can research. We need a couple Pokemon.
And it's there! There's the Yveltal and the Crobat. So Lucas gets a little bit too confident in that game. Doesn't bench the extra Zacian. Doesn't want to take the risk. Well, turns out the risk was in not benching them. And Matthias takes a very unlikely game too. We were talking about maybe doesn't have another Pokemon. Actually did have 2 extra Pokemon. Chose not to bench them. Was searching for that Zamazenta or maybe another Pokédoll. Something to buy a turn. And that was a risk. It was a calculated risk. And it did not pay off.
Honestly, I'm gobsmacked, to be honest. Lucario Melmetal is not important in this matchup. You don't need it. You don't need to have that reduction. You're playing 3 copies of Malolana. Just be safe. Put down that second Zacian. It's easy for me to say now that there's a miss, but there's no reason to not put it down. That's only 4 prizes. You can still have your unfathomable Zamazentas that just are the hurdles that never get beaten. You still had 2 Malolanas remaining. Just be safe in that spot.
Absolutely. That was a very unexpected end to that game. I did not see that coming. I assumed there was going to be a Pokemon, and then they got discarded. I'm like, well, they're definitely going to draw something here. And, we saw how good Eternatus is. Eternatus can have those turns where they bench 4, 5, 6 Pokemon and get those giant attacks. I think Matias caught a huge break in that last game. Won a game that they probably shouldn't have won. Or at least should have been a big underdog. So I think we need to go straight into game 3 and see if we might see anything else a little bit weird in this game.
Yeah, I'd imagine Lucas would choose to go first as well here, so they can try and get their own Intrepid Swords up. There's no real reason, there's no threat of you getting knocked out in one turn, so Lucas is going to choose to go first as expected. And that allows them to potentially have more Intrepid Swords on their side. We still, again, have to stress that Lucas is still massively favoured. And, wow, Matthias has got an awkward hand of their own here. They probably have to just instant Marnie by the looks of things.
Yeah, that is
maybe a few mulligans help them, but yeah, still awkward.
Yeah, you need something decent off the mulligans here. I mean, going first for Lucas is huge, because obviously one of the easier quote-unquote win conditions... Oh, there's another Crobat! In this particular matchup is go first, hope your opponent passes with 1 Pokemon, and then get the early KO. But no such luck here. Firstly, Lucas is going first. Secondly, we see a Quick Ball. We see a Zamazenta. And although Matthias got very lucky and managed to win Game 2, oh, and there's a Metal Saucer as well. Game 3 does not look much like Game 2.
This is picture perfect, turn 1 for Lucas. Even able to get an additional attachment in on Zacian. And for Matthias, you probably have to just Power Plant and Marnie, which is a really poor turn.
Yeah.
You like saving your Marnies to disrupt the large hands that they can grow with Intrepid Sword, but no other option. Does find a communication, so they can begin to attach to Eternatus if they wish. That seems like the strongest decision, because you need something that isn't in range of a boss's orders KO with the opponent's Zamazenta, so... Early energy drop on Eternatus. You still need this to get through the Zacian, at least. Now that they have begun to commit energies to it, Matthias is incentivized to knock it out. We are going to see some prize card checking, as you always love to see. They could even attach to Crobat if they want to, but they're just going to attach to Eternatus and go ahead for next turn where they can attach again and research.
Certainly setting up for next turn is an option. We see another Zamazenta coming down here. We see a Pokegear into a Marnie. Oh, now actually, Matthias has gone from a pretty bad hand to a very workable hand here. So Does Lucas play the Marnie when his opponent has a 2-card hand? That is an interesting one.
Yeah, you see the communication, and it wasn't, for a Crobat to hold for next turn, or it wasn't held for next turn. So you expect your opponent to have some cards. It depends, really. You can just afford to Intrepid Sword. I feel like, again, just sort of make them have it is never a bad option here. You have the time on your side at this time. You can do whatever you want, really. The 2 Zamazenta are established. You're chilling it all over again.
Yeah, and there's 2 easy prizes on the board, and after that, I mean, at this stage, it looks like Matias would have to legitimately go through both Zamazenta in order to actually go ahead and try and win this game. It's pretty unlikely at this stage. We see a professor's research into a lot of Pokemon.
He can play all of them. That's great.
Actually can. See, this is the kind of hand you want when you're going for that cheeky turn 2 win.
And there's only 2 Galarian Zigzagoons, so this damage has to go on to Zamazenta rather than Pokédoll. You're never getting through one of them. You can see the 5-card draw from Crobat. No switch outs, unfortunately, for Matias, so not dealing with any Pokédoll this turn. No more draw available. They could use Quick Ball just to start getting some Spiritomb into play, so they can begin building Spite.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think Spiritomb is it's not a phenomenal attacker here, but it's still a single energy Pokemon that can hit Zamazenta. And I like those plays, as awkward as they are and as unlikely as they are. Boss's orders onto a Zamazenta before they've got lots of energy established, and just kind of cross your fingers. You know your opponent's playing Mallow and Lana and Pokegear and all of that stuff. You know it's unlikely, but you know what? Winning is unlikely in this particular matchup. So take whatever little advantages you can get and kind of cross your fingers.
Lucas going to do a quick thin of his deck, getting rid of a Lucario Melmetal, grabbing a Zacian just to throw it back to the bottom with Marnie to improve his draws. Does start getting some metal goals into play to make that Zamazenta even more difficult to get through, and once again can end on Intrepid Sword. 1 attachment away from starting to put the pressure on Matias now.
Yeah, it's looking very good from Lucas's point of view. It really is everything they need at this stage. Okay, 1 more energy on the first Zamazenta, but after that, you just start whittling down the prizes. And like we've seen in the previous games, we're not talking about some big, aggressive 3-turn win. You're talking probably 6 turns in order to actually end up the game. But it doesn't really matter. Once you're rolling, you're rolling. And we did see Matias concede game 1 when he got to a stage where they really weren't going to win. But you're in game 3 at this stage. We're probably going to see Matias play this one out a little bit longer, really try and search for every possible out, because this is it in terms of this matchup.
Yeah, we are going to see the second Spiritomb developed, as you say. It's not much, but it's honest work. It's the only way you can get through these Zamazentas. We are going to see the Professor's research here, looking for some switch outs, because you really do want to deal with these dolls proactively, because just giving Lucas more time to Intrepid Sword is just not where you want to be.
No, you're in a bad matchup anyway. The last thing you want to do is give your opponent multiple turns to just start setting up their Pokemon, which match up really well against your Pokemon. So we see Dread there taking a KO on the Pokédoll. One could argue 270 damage is a little bit more than you need, but at least it got the job done.
And Lucas throws the Zamazenta number 1 into the active position. 3rd energy, swung straight onto it. Boss's orders even, starting to deal with Spiritombs. That is a pretty good turn.
What more do you need? You've got the energy on the Zamazenta ready to go. You take a KO. You take the, as weird as this sounds, the biggest threat off of the board.
Yeah, if you can call that the biggest threat, you know you're in for a good day. But it looks like Matias has the option to use Crobat now and start poisoning if they really would like to. They can also use Hooper. They actually have so limited switch outs that the Hooper is very situational. You try and weave him in every now and then, but I feel like Crobat's probably the best move early on. Or Boss Orders take the 2 prizes while they're here and deny Intrepid Sword, making your future Marnies a lot stronger. This is also reasonable.
Yeah, I like this. We've seen, the Intrepid Sword from Lucas coming in turn after turn. It's just having that as an option for when you don't need to attack is absolutely ridiculous. So these prizes do not get Matias that much closer to actually winning the game. It's 2 out of 6, and there are no other easy ones on the board. But just getting rid of that Intrepid Sword option, and, Lucas can have Intrepid Sword back if they bench another Zacian.
Yeah, and we know that Lucas doesn't like benching 2. He doesn't want to put them into play. There's another Boss's Orders. That's another Spiritomb down with no value at all. really whittling through Matthias's answers. We can see a Eviltal get promoted here. Looks like the Hooper could be coming down as well. I mean, 4 energy on Zamazenta, even, Crushing Hammer, derail plays, you're still able to just attach and keep swinging, so things are looking tough for Matthias.
Things really are. I mean, this is going better than game 1 went at this stage. You've got your double Zamazenta, you've got your energy. I love that insurance energy there, just going, look, I know you like doing this whole derail Crushing Hammer stuff, so... And, the 4 energy on there, it's put Matthias off, and now it's just Crobat Poison. So... you're talking 40 damage plus poison. And we know that, every time Matias starts thinking, this might actually add up, I might actually get a KO, we know a Mallow and Lana is going to be coming down to spoil the party.
Gonna see more Metal Goggles, second Zamazenta now ready to rumble, 130 damage into this Crobat, so now that's in the line of fire. You're gonna have to probably retreat it, try and make some other plays work for you. Matthias can go for a Marnie, but the hand size isn't that large from Lucas at this point where you're getting too much value. Going to see the backup Crobat now start to get energies. We are going to see the Marnie to reload here. Still looking for switch outs. You probably want to protect this energy if you ever do want to attack with this Crobat again, even if you are sacrificing prizes. Do see Crushing Hammer, so Crushing Hammer derail could be a way that you could buy a turn back here.
Yeah, that could work. Still looking rough though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to buy a turn back here. I'm not even trying to win the game at this point.
No, I mean...
more poison. Let's go.
Let's do this. I mean, you think about the Eternatus deck. I mean, what even is there? You can only really play Darkness Pokemon without completely destroying the deck. So you're limited so much in the options you've got. And we see things like this Evil Tower, and we see a KO coming down here on the Crobat. You got your Evil Tower, your Hooper, your Spiritomb. They are really good for taking out little one-prize Pokemon, support Pokemon, Jirachi, Cinccino, things of that nature. And they're good in weird situations, but they're not really good when you're trying to take out someone like a Zamazenta. And it's not like we can look at this and go, wow, they should be playing this Darkness Pokemon instead. They chose not to. Actually, if you look at the pool of Darkness Pokemon we've got, there really is not a good candidate to chuck into an Eternatus deck to give you an option against Zamazenta, because if there was, at least some people would probably be playing it.
Yeah, Sableye V was in early renditions, but it quickly went out of fashion because it's just so easy for Zacians to deal with the Sableye proactively. And even then, you still need to have the chip damage from the Crobats from this other stuff that just gets Mallow off regardless. So the Sableye V proved to not be good enough. Now people just say, I'll take the bad matchup and accept that I'll have games like this where I feel pretty bad.
It's not ideal, but bearing in mind, right, we're in winners round 6 here, which means you're 2 wins away from advancing to global finals. And all right, let's say Matthias loses this matchup. Oh, and it looks like we are going to see the concession here. So Matthias is going to lose and drop down to the winners bracket. Congratulations to Lucas.